Diggy Brothers. Diggy Brothers are an interesting pair. They are reportedly one of the hardest ones to fight, but the main thing that you need to know about them is they actually only have 3 attacks each. I know there's a lot going on, so it's hard to follow, but the blue one is the only one that will go into the middle like that. Otherwise it will be laying a mine, or it will be shooting barrage. The orange one, or the red one, depending on what colour you're seeing, is the only one that will do the charge. And then again, it will do the barrage, and it will lay mines. All of these attacks can be dodged by just fluttering your jetpack and moving sideways. So I have to think for a second then. Now if you've had your jetpack nerfed by glitches, it can make it a bit harder. But hopefully by that time you've got a build that's strong enough to kill them quickly that it doesn't really matter. But ultimately the strat is just kind of double jump up, then flutter your jetpack. And the reason this is good is because when they're barraging at you, it gets the barrage high enough that if you get stuck against a corner, you can then just drop to the floor and then slide jump over the incoming barrage, as long as you don't jump into mines while doing it. And obviously there is still some concentration needed, so it's kind of difficult to give all the information while fighting them, but that's kind of the essence of the base strat for killing them with guns. Now doing it melee, it's a whole different bag. They're probably the harder bosses to melee, but let's do a clip with melee. Melee combat versus Diggy Brothers is very, very difficult. I wouldn't advise it personally if you've got any other choice, but it is possible. It's a similar strat as if you're using guns. You just want to try and stay high and try and keep as many of them in sight as you can. But the problem is obviously because you're in melee, you're up a lot closer, so you can't keep them in sight as much. So the trick is knowing what options you have to be dodging. So if you can't see the orange one, you know that there's a chance it's either charging at you or it's hitting a barrage. Luckily, if you're doing the movements to dodge one barrage attack, you're probably doing the movements to dodge 2, as long as it's not directly behind you. So yeah, just flutter above, keep them in eyesight as much as you can. Remember to use those iframes if you need to get in close, and sometimes just accept that you're not going to be able to get damage off of rotation. That spot, there's mines there. As you can tell, it takes a lot more concentration. This Diggy is being crap, now lots of shooting. But you just have to take it slow, not get too greedy with your hits like I did just then. Middle. Oh, he's still charging the figures. Changing. That. And there we go. So it takes a lot more concentration. You will take hits. You just have to be really, really hyper aware of what option each Diggy can do and the likelihood of where they've gone. So you can see which corner they're heading to. It'll glow slightly. You can see the rumbling in the floor, so you know where they're popping up. If they're popping up on the side, they're either going to start doing a barrage attack, or if it's the blue one, it's either going to do the barrage attack or it's going to lay mines. It can't do anything else. If it's going to the middle, it's either going to lay mines or it's going to come up and do shockwaves. If you're fluttering to avoid a barrage, you're already avoiding the shockwave. Doesn't matter. With the orange one, unfortunately, there is a little bit more RNG to it, because if it's going to one of the sides, it can come up and it can either charge, or it can barrage, or it can mine, and it can do the charge option from any corner or the centre. So it's probably best to keep your eye on the red orangey one and just keep the blue one in mind. But it is possible. It's just, it takes a lot more practice, and it's a lot harder. So avoid it if possible. If not, know your strategies. And we have the Boogie Bouncers. Boogie Bouncers is a pretty easy one. You can either stay and concentrate on the middle. If the laser comes out, then you can just always go under Uncle Jim. What you don't want to do when Uncle Jim does the big laser is you do not want to just stay moving to the right, because for whatever reason the big laser has better tracking when you're going to the right and it'll start moving super fast. You can just keep moving around and shoot the crit spot on Dr. Turret, or you can just shoot Uncle, whichever one, but you do want to try and maintain visual on where the spinning laser is for Doctor. So, yeah, you just keep moving around. If he puts too much fire down so you can't reliably do this, another strat you can do, and what we were talking about with the melee strat, is you can just sit above Uncle Jim. As long as he's not doing a machine gun attack, you can just sit above him and be fairly safe. And that is that fight. Boogie Bouncers should be one of the easiest, if not the easiest in the games for melee. You just go up and there's a spot on Uncle that you just keep bouncing. If he gets his machine gun out, it's no longer a safe spot. Just pull away, wait for it to stop shooting, and then go straight back to it. And as long as you're stood here, I'll get it right. He can't really hit you with anything. He has a melee shield. You can either flutter above it, or if you've got your position correct, you can just keep head bonking and he can't ever hit you. And the rockets from Dr. Turret won't ever hit you because they move too slowly, and the rockets from Turret are the only thing that will go up there. Everything else is on the floor. So if you also want to use that for shooting him, that's also a very safe strat. You just can't get as consistent crits. And that's that fight. Nice and easy. Okie dokie, the Buzz Gang. The Buzz Gang can be a little bit dangerous if you let Mosquito get too out of control. What you really want to do is try and stick to the back of the wall and DPS. This is a case again where his laser tracks really hard if you're going right when he's shooting. So just try and get underneath him as quickly as you can. The key to this one is trying not to panic and trying not to go too fast. And just make sure you stay on top of Mosquito's summons, and make sure you're not eating rockets to the face while talking. It helps a lot with it. So now the summons have got a little bit out of control and he's going a bit ballistic, so you can quickly see that the fight can kind of escalate out of control. But as long as you stay mostly to the wall, the only thing that's ever going to really hit you are the mines that Uncle Jim shoots out. And yeah, just like that. But sticking to the outside of the arena helps loads, because mostly the only things going to hit you are sticky mines or rockets as they hit the wall behind you. So you need to make sure you're going a little bit quickly. If you focus on Mosquito when he's trying to suck from the pool, it'll delay his rage. And if you make sure you're taking out the summon orbs he drops on the floor, they have a lot less health than when he actually summons, so that can stop the fight getting kind of escalating. We'll move on to how to do this fight with melee. It's much the same as the other Uncle Jim fight we saw, and we actually don't care if it escalates out of control too much with that. So we'll move on to that one now. Meleeing Uncle Jim and Mosquito, the Buzz Gang. As we've already talked about, to melee this boss, you just go up high and just belong here. Doesn't matter if he rages. Reset this because he's got his machine gun out. If you're moving around the arena like this, none of Mosquito's attacks can hit you. I took a bit of damage there because I was being very lazy. You want to reset a little bit quicker than that. I started also not keeping up with the speed, so again I took more damage than I had to. But Mosquito can't hit you there. The rockets can hit you if you miss position, but again it's something you can learn. The machine gun's the only real threat. So that's how you That's how you melee this boss. Very nice and easy fight. Right, the Justice Crew. The Justice Crew is one that a lot of people complain about because of how many things that are going on. You've got all these orbs here that are coming at you, you've got lasers shooting at you, he runs up and punches you, and it's all a bit of a nightmare. Especially when Justice starts laying his mines down. But a nice little strat that you can do is you can kind of just do this. This will work for melee as well, obviously I'll do a melee thing as well. Pretty much if you are centering yourself, the only thing that will hit you are the occasional time when he kind of spins around because you're too close. If you get too close above the other boss while you're doing this, or the stunning shot. But ultimately this here is the easiest strat for killing. Just make sure that when the Judge Ball starts spinning and putting down mines, you get off his head and you just start fluttering your jetpack, and then you go straight back onto his head afterwards. And as I say, the plasma ball shots that stun you are the only reliable one that's going to hit you in those situations. But hopefully Judge Ball's kind of moving around enough that you staying centered head bonking will dodge them. And sometimes Nuka's like AoE ball shots that he kind of lays across the floor, sometimes he'll shoot those high enough to kind of clip you if you're directly above him. But again, those are things that you just kind of have to position around. If you see that he's getting into a position where you're going to do that, then back off, let them split up again, and then just go back onto the head bonking. Right, now to the melee clip. Okay. Meleeing the Justice Crew is much the same as using the gun. You wait for Judge Ball to be shooting at you, and then you just sit on his eye and making sure to take a little bit extra movement if things start going awry, and to flutter yourself away into the this. Now, one thing I did think about between this fight and the last fight, if you've got the glitches that decrease how long you can jetpack for, this can be a little bit harder. If you just land on the floor and then prep your pogo, you can get straight back to it the same way as fluttering. It's just a little bit less safe. You will get clipped every now and again by the odd attack doing this, but you should be absolutely fine to cope with it. Again, if you get one of the glitches that reduces your grappling hook as well, you can always utilize your pogo stick to much the same effect. It just gets a little bit harder, but it's still very manageable. This is probably third easiest boss to melee, third easiest boss to kill in general. The other two both involving Uncle Jim. Big Bad Bugs. Big Bad Bugs, in my opinion, are some of the hardest to consistently DPS with a lot of builds, especially melee builds. What I tend to do is try and stay in the centre while you've still got ground, and hopefully you kill them quick enough. If you're not killing them quick enough and you start running out, then you can pretty safely ride the rails all around the outside. To be fair, if you've watched my other boss guide video on fighting Beetle Royale, it's much the same. The only difference is you've got a few extra projectiles coming at you as rockets from above for Cater. But ultimately, Cater Coaster can't really hit you if you are moving constantly. If you need to get rid of some of the minions on the outside to give yourself a bit more room, then do so. But ultimately, just strafing around and ignore Cater as much as you can, and just treat it as another Beetle Royale fight, and you should be fine. Big Bad Bugs. Big Bad Bugs are a pain in the ass to melee. Beetle Royale spends a lot of time moving around, either shooting lasers at you, which you don't really want to be in her face for while she does, or dropping mines. She spends a lot less time breaking the floor, so your best bet is to wait for Cater to not be charging and then just get up in the face and melee. If you do get a chance to be hitting Beetle when she's hitting the floor, that's prime time to do it. For the most part, you just kind of want to stay on Cater's head. If you see them stopping to do an attack, then you want to get off them just in case they are doing a charge attack, and then you just go back to dealing with them when you can. That's basically it. You just need to stay around the outside, try and avoid detail as much as you can. But yeah, it's in my opinion, this is one of the worst ones to try and melee, not just because of all the stuff going on. Like, there's a lot going on in the Diggy fight, but I'd still say it's actually easier to get proper damage openings in that fight than it is in this one, just because of how much these guys move and how awkward it is to deal with them. They're just always running away, or they're doing attacks which physically get you off them. So yeah, your best bet is just keep chasing Kater and try and avoid the Beetle fight in general, because she's only ever not doing an attack that's going to hurt you in melee if she's blowing up a block, and she'll only do one block at a time, and it's quicker animation here than it is in the solo fight. So yeah, melee's quite difficult here. The other thing you can do is, if you're one of the characters that can get inside her whirlwind hitbox, you can do it with grapple as well, but it's inconsistent. If you can get inside her whirlwind hitbox, then the fight gets a whole lot easier. So you're probably best off, if you're one of the characters that can do that, doing that. On to the next one. Groovy Guadians, Judgeable and Kater Coaster. And this, in my opinion, is probably one of the hardest fights. You've got to deal with the lasers and the overhead rocket from Judgeable, while Kater Coaster's going on the outside, while you have pretty much no floor to play on. So it's really difficult to dodge Judgeable's actual difficult attacks, and it's difficult to keep up with Kater Coaster. So this is an actual struggle one, in my opinion, probably the hardest. Two strats that you can do is you can either try and keep up with Kater Coaster going around the outside, or you can try and sit on Judgeable's face and kind of flutter in front of him like this, and then occasionally land to refuel. If you end up having less fuel, it's a lot harder to do. You can also periodically jump on its head, keep up for longer, but it's risky and it's harder. This is just a slow fight that you just have to deal with slowly, obviously. You can use these areas here if you need to, but they can get covered in mines and it can get a bit hectic. The safer option is probably to try and chase down Kater Coaster, but this is actually one of the few times where if you're moving around the outside too quickly, then you're going to fall into the Judgeable trap of you're moving too much, and you're going to get hit by those side lasers. Yeah, as I say, this is probably the fight that I dread the most. Very, very difficult fight. Very tough to stay on top of. Now let's roll into the melee fight and see if it goes as well. The Groovy Guardians with melee. So as I said previously, this is probably the hardest fight to melee. What you're going to try and do is flutter in front of it and just kind of bounce off its nose every time it does an overhead, and then just back off as soon as he starts laying mines, and then we're going to go at it again. Then you can just ride his face a little bit like this, and as long as you're strafing in a single direction, be it left or right, you should miss most of the time if you're doing it correctly. Then just reset. Get back into the nose position. Again, you can do this just fine if you've got any of the glitches that reduce jetpack. It just is harder to get into position. There we go. That is meleeing Judgeable and Kater Coaster. Hey, Diggerynauts. Okay, so Diggerynauts are pretty tough one because of how much you have to concentrate on. But again, if you, as it is with a lot of bosses, if you stick to the wall and just back up, you can dodge most of what it's going to do. The lasers that he shoots, or that Iris Stage 2 shoots, are so much smaller in this version than they are normally. It's absolutely fine. This one again, just like Iris Stage 2, you get up close and then you pop yourself away again. If you're slide hopping, these are basically never going to hit you. And as you can see, this whole time I've been concentrating on looking at Iris stage 2. I've not been tracking where Diggy is at all. And if you're moving around like this, as long as you don't walk into Diggy when doing the barrage like that, you can just freely dodge all of what Diggy's doing while you are dodging Iris stage 2. Like, you can just pretty much do this forever. Only when Iris does the rockets do you get close, and then you can just back off again. And that's how you beat this fight. It is a difficult fight if you let things get on top of you, but if you're just consistently slide hopping around the walls, you're going to dodge 90% of it. There are some times that you have to react and just start changing up your slides a little bit. You have to get close to Iris when she's doing a lock on rockets because they will hit you at range, but they cannot hit you when you get up close. That's the fight. It's pretty simple. I've not tried this one fully melee, so it's going to be an interesting one fully melee. So let's give that a try and see how it goes. Meleeing Diggerynauts. Diggerynauts is probably the hardest boss in melee. You're going to want to start off just avoiding the claw attack at the start, like you would at most fights. Then when they're rocketing is the safest time that you're going to want to be melee. Then we're going to be dodging around a bunch. It's just not a great time to melee when they're doing lasers. And you melee them fine during the laser fingers and during the rockets. As long as you're walking around in a circle, then Diggy's going to struggle to hit you with the barrel. Do have an issue with this laser attack, so big on safety. Fuck off. That's a really unfortunate position to be stood in for this attack. You're not going to really be able to DPS Diggy much because she just is way too active. So you just have to slow play this fight, avoid the lasers. You're not going to get a decent time to really melee Diggy. Like, you can do Diggy tech to melee her, but she just feels like she changes so frequently that it's just not really worth doing. Just wait for Iris to be doing any attack other than the laser barrage and just jump on her face. And as long as you're head bonking on her and moving around in a circle, then most of Diggy's stuff's going to miss. On occasion, you will have to make adjustments to avoid the barrage. But it's still, yeah, it's still very possible. But she probably is the hardest one, realistically, to, well, I don't know. Diggy Brothers are very difficult to fight. Because there's always a lot going on and you get really hard punished. Kate Coaster and Beetle Royale are annoying to fight in melee because they're always running away from you. And this one you just have to be really patient with your timings. But once you've got that patience down, the openings are actually quite big. So it might be that Diggy Brothers are actually harder. Yeah. That's that. That will be the end of the guide.